Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed. Here we go. Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, me too. Jason's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Class, if you'd like to give us a call, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, 712-770-9418. 712-770-9418 is the telephone listen line. Dr. Shealy, before we get into some of the thoughts that I have written on my notepad, is there anything that you'd like to share with us that all things might have happened, not sharing any personal confidences, patient-specific information, but general things that you've observed over the last, I don't know, few weeks?
Well, the saga goes on. The lies, the lies, the lies, the lies, the deceit, the deception. It's the biggest story in history.
Yeah. Well, there's one that could be bigger. Now, if Jesus Christ were a fraud, that would be bigger. Other than that, this is it, right?
Exactly.
Because that's been going on for a couple thousand years. I'm not saying it's a fraud. I'm just saying if it were, it would be bigger. But I suppose what you're saying, Dr. Shealy, is that we cannot get accurate information. Our government says yes, no. They say masks, no masks. They can't make up their mind. They lock down. They say no lockdown. Then they say we're going to unlock down. And then they say no. We just had a problem. We're going to lock down. So the people don't know what to do. And now it's almost like if there are laws, they're laws of the minute rather than, laws that are set for a while, like decades. So the people are really frustrated, and I understand it. I absolutely do. So, I had a question for you about now I've never heard it called this, but I imagine this would be an accurate description, the dental industrial complex. And my question is, Dr. Shealy, would you say that the dental industrial complex is responsible for low thyroid conditions from...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
They are more evil than the tobacco industry.
Yeah, and I was thinking in several different areas of the dental industrial complex. By the way, do you think that term is a stretch, or do you think that's reasonable? Dental industrial complex.
It definitely is.
Okay. I was thinking about I was thinking about people with low thyroid conditions. So, you need to have these fluoride tablets and have your children chew on them for a while. Fluoride treatments at the dentist. X-rays. Now, would you say that X-rays contribute to low thyroid condition by blasting away at the throat while X-rays are being given of the jaw?
Oh, yeah. A small part of the whole.
So we have that. We have the fluoride in the city water. We have the fluoride in the toothpaste. We have the fluoride in the tablets to help you get fluoridosis. And then we have the amalgam fillings. Now, would the amalgam fillings contribute to a thyroid condition, or is that a separate issue?
Well, no, they contribute to it because they literally are poison. Mercury is one of the greatest poisons there is.
And an amalgam filling is a combination of mercury and silver And
Right.
it is, it's compounded and pushed into a hole that's just been drilled into your tooth, and it fills it for a while. Right? Now, Dr. Shealy, gold used to be, there are people who had gold fillings. Whatever happened to that? Do you know?
Well, they're still around. They can replace the fillings, and they're not toxic.
Well, yeah, gold is something that it's really hard to change gold into something else. It's resistant to lots of things like acid. It's malleable. And I would think, well, Dr. Shealy, weren't seeds like the size of a grain of rice, mixed with radioactive elements and used as a cancer treatment, let's say 100 years ago? Maybe even up to today?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And does it work? Or
No.
is it? Okay. Okay. I know a man who, I've seen around our village, and he said he was going in for surgery. And I said, what kind of surgery? If he was willing to tell me. He said, well, I was going to have, it was just a little thing, no big deal. He was just going to have some implants done for prostate issue. And I said, what are you talking about? Are you talking about radioactive gold? He said, yeah, it's no big deal. All they do is you just go into the office, they insert these, and you're done. Now, he was talking about the procedure, and I wasn't even really thinking about the procedure. I was thinking about the long-term effects. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Shealy?
Very toxic. I know one person who was killed by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I received an email from a gentleman. His name is Ryan. And I just wanted to share a little bit of this. And he was very polite. And I appreciate it when people are polite. And he mentioned that he was talking with a friend whose family owns a small farm. And he was discussing the pros and cons of raising cattle versus growing and selling hay. So, for example, if you have a farm, you can run some animals on it, put some fencing up, and have cows on it. And that's what Dr. Shealy does, and that's what we do here. Or you could forget the cows, or the beef, or the beefalo, or the buffalo, and just raise grass, and cut the grass, rake the grass, and bale the grass, and sell it as hay. And so Ryan wanted to know what my thoughts were. And I'll be glad to answer your question, Ryan, but not today. We'll do it on Thursday. Okay? So and the reason I mention this, if you've got a question that is an interesting question that you think other people would like to know about, you can send me an email. You can send it to instructor, INSTRUCTOR, at USAPrepares.com, instructor at USAPrepares.com. And I'll be glad to read it. And if it warrants responding, I'll be glad to do that as well. And if you have some comments, I'd love to hear your comments about what I've been doing on Thursdays and sometimes Fridays, which is telling you about topics from my unfinished, unpublished, not available for sale book. Things that, tips the way I do things and the way our family does things. So if you'd like to hear more about that, please let me know. Instructor at USA Prepares. If you'd like to know less about that, if you want me to stop talking about it, I'd like to know that too. So you can send me an email soon, because Thursday's coming up. Dr. Shealy, when people go to the doctor's office, one of the very first things that happens, in most cases, at, let's say, a hospital-type clinic, the nurse will put you on the scale. And they will annotate your chart as to your latest weight. What is that all about? What are they looking for?
Well, obviously, body mass index is the critical factor. The healthy body mass index is 18 to 24. Every pound of weight above that body mass index of 24 increases your risk of death from heart disease, cancer, diabetes, stroke.
Okay, so are they looking for changes?
Well, they're looking for where you are and where you should be.
Okay. All right. And what about if you're losing weight?
Well, that depends on how much you've lost. If you are significantly over a body mass index of 24, good on you, mate. Lose all you can.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to try to do a quick body. I'm going to try to do a BMI on me and let you know what it is. Okay. And here we go. I just weighed myself this morning. I lost weight. Okay. Calculate 21.1.
Darn good.
You sure?
I'm positive.
I was thinking I'd rather be a little lower than that. I weighed in at 135 this morning. And I've been hanging around 135, 136, 137, 138. And I'm delighted to be down at 135. You know, just a couple pounds makes a difference to me, Dr. Shealy. Would that be common, that, you know, losing a couple pounds would make a difference?
Yes.
I guess it depends on how much, you know, losing 2 pounds coming down from 400 might not be that significant, but coming down from 137 to 135 seems to, okay. So body mass index, what does that really tell us? Is it flab? Is it fat? What does it really mean?
Well, it's all of those, because we're really talking about the total weight for the certain height, and when the body mass index is above 24, it increases your risk of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, stroke.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple.
Okay. So, class, if you want to calculate it yourself, you can just type in 3 letters on a search engine, BMI, as in body mass index, and you'll see some websites that'll let you type in your height in feet, and then a little box for inches, and then you type in your weight, and then you click on compute, and it will tell you what your body mass index is. So, there you have it. And it will even tell you what Dr. Shealy said about, you know, underweight, normal weight, overweight, obesity. Okay. Dr. Shealy, you wrote a lot of books, and I don't think most people who know of you realize how many books you have written. It's enormous. Is it 39? Is that correct?
I'm working on number 39 right now.
Is that like more than one a year typically?
Well, let me see. My first book was in 1966, I think. So,
okay,
not quite one a year.
What is your? When we get back, can you tell us? I mean, there's so many books that you've written, and if you want to learn about this, Dr. Shealy's books, you can go to normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And I think it'd be great if it's okay with you, Dr. Shealy, just so our class can learn a little bit more about who is Dr. Shealy. Dr. Shealy is an award-winning doctor, Surgeon of the Year. We'll be right back. Dr. Shealy's with us, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, would it be all right with you if we just shared some information about, you know, who is Dr. Shealy? Is that okay with you?
Of course.
Okay. So, I believe it was 1956, you attended Duke University School of Medicine.
That's the year I graduated, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you know, that's a class, you have to be careful when people use the term attended, and I didn't mean to minimize that. But some people say they attended, you know, XYZ University, and that means that, you know, they showed up at least one day. and so graduating is completely different. Dr. Shealy, I remember a freshman orientation at the university, and I was in this big theater, and there's like, easily 550 seats in the theater. And this was just one of the orientation sessions, and and the person leading the discussion said, look to the person to your left, look to the person to your right. Only one of you is going to be here in 4 years. And that's true. So now maybe it's 1 in 4 rather than 1 in 3. So in 1956, you graduated from Duke University School of Medicine. Was that the beginning of your interest in medicine, or did medicine intrigue you before that?
At age 4, I announced to my family I was going to be a physician.
What was their reaction?
They didn't know what to say because nobody in the family, there had never been a physician in the family. No, nobody knew why. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I just suddenly announced it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember, early age, young people saying that they wanted to be a fireman or a policeman, and very few, but some said they wanted to be a doctor, and that's really interesting, extremely interesting. So, when did you become very serious in your pursuit of it, or was it at age 4?
Well, I think I became serious at age 16.
Uh-huh.
I graduated from high school when I was 16.
That's early.
Yeah, I was, a couple of years earlier than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then, yes?
I read a book called Magnificent Obsession, and it was the story of a neurosurgeon from Chicago. And that's when I decided I not only want to be a physician, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Mm-hmm. And so what was the next step?
Well, of course, I had to finish an internship. You had to do that in something. And even though I was going into a surgical field, I interned in internal medicine because I thought it was a more important internship than a surgical internship.
Okay, and why do you say that, Dr. Shealy? Is it because the whole body's involved rather than a specialty?
Yes, and, interestingly, surgical internships to me were scut work. They didn't teach you much, but you had a lot of work to do. And I looked at a whole bunch of surgical internships and didn't like any of them, so I decided to intern in internal medicine and take another year of general surgery.
So that was a longer path rather than a shorter path that you took. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what happened next? Well,
I had my year of medicine and my year of general surgery, and then I went to Mass General Hospital at Harvard, and that's where I spent 5 years in the neurosurgical residency.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of work did you do at Harvard's Massachusetts General Hospital?
Well,
as a surgical resident.
Yes. Well, you did all kinds of things from the emergency ward, taking care of people who were in very serious critical things. Actually, the first craniotomy, opening of the skull, I ever did, I did alone. I was the resident on call, and a patient came in with a bad head injury, and the chief resident, I called the chief resident, and he said, "Go ahead, I'll meet you there." Well, he walked in as I was showing up the wound at the surgery.
So you had to take part of this person's skull off?
Well, I had to take a piece out and put it back in.
Okay. Class, I hope you find this as fascinating as I. This is quite instructive. We'll be back with Dr. Shealy, and we'll talk a little bit more about his career in medicine. Class, I've been broadcasting with Dr. Norm Shealy for about 10 years, or almost 10 years, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to let you all know who Dr. Shealy is? You're going to be quite impressed as we continue, even more impressed. Dr. Shealy, so you were working on your residency, you did some brain surgery. What else did you experience during those years at Harvard's Massachusetts General Hospital?
Well, two things that really are outstanding. One is one of the most common operations was a cordotomy, in which you actually went into the operating room, took the bone off the back of the spine of 2 levels, and then used a piece of a single-edged razor blade to cut the front half of the spinal cord. absolutely barbarian. I was appalled at the, well, to me, craziness of it. It had a 90% success rate in getting rid of pain on the opposite side of the body, but it had a 100% chance of causing more trouble than it helped. 10% paralysis, 10% paralysis of bladder and bowel, 100% loss of orgasm forever. And after 8 years, it wore off. Your pain came back. So when I finished my residency, I spent 3 years looking at what can we do other than damage the nervous system. That's when I came up with transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, or TENS, and spinal cord stimulation, which is essentially a pacemaker of the spinal cord. Both of those are still used all over the world.
And so, Dr. Shealy, was that one of your first patents, or was that subsequent to
Well,
some of your patents?
interestingly, I took both ideas to Medtronic because they made pacemakers, and they told me they were not patentable, and they patented them without my name. Everybody knows that I created them, but I look upon it, it's Medtronic's karma, not mine. They lied.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of thing happens where great ideas are stolen.
Yeah.
And little people get the credit. I got an email from one of our students asking me about, things, and I mentioned things that happened in my life, and I said it's something like there's no shortage of people willing to steal your ideas and take credit for them. And it's an outrage. And I said it runs in my family. It started with my father. My father invented the automatic parachute. He noticed that, mail planes in the 30s would, land. They'd bring the mail bags out of the airmail planes, and then they'd take off again. Well, he wanted to know, if they could just drop it without stopping, why didn't they? And so, obviously I have to pick up some of the mail, but this invention was used during the war, World War II, to drop supplies, and it would open the parachute at a predetermined height, so that the cargo wouldn't get destroyed upon impact, just from free fall. But so that's quite fascinating. So your invention was stolen, and sold by Medtronic. What else were you passionate about at that time in your life?
Well, I wanted to find a way of treating pain without damaging the person. And that, in 1972, I was exposed to autogenic training. Autogenic training is a self-hypnosis technique that has been around since 1912. There were 2,600 scientific references when I learned about it. Today, there are 28,000 scientific references on the benefits of autogenic training. So I went back and got a PhD in psychology so that I'd understand it better. And I turned it into what I call biogenics, the origin of life. And now I have 60 different mental exercises for retraining the nervous system.
So it sounds to me, Dr. Shealy, that in your life, when you got an idea, you wanted to pursue it for the benefit of people without causing collateral damage to those people.
That is correct.
Is that right?
That is the main focus of my life.
I've heard of stories of surgeons saying, "Here's what we're going to do." So a person has intense pain. They say, "What we'll do is we'll take some vodka, a really high concentration of alcohol, and we'll inject that into the nerve that is reporting the pain, and we'll kill that." Is that still done, Dr. Shealy?
Yes.
That kind of shooting the messenger?
Yes.
What are your thoughts about that kind of a treatment?
Well, I don't like it. I don't believe in damaging the nervous system.
Yeah. And once it's damaged, can it be fixed? Can you say, "No, we shouldn't have done that"?
Rarely.
Rarely. Mm-hmm. So, class, the takeaway from that is when we're talking about surgery, sometimes you can't put it back. You can't say, "Shouldn't have done that." So kind of like a tooth extraction, I guess. You know, you're you're having a tooth extracted, and you go, no, I'll tell you what. Listen, you only got half of it out. Let's stop. Okay. So what happened next, Dr. Shealy, in your medical life?
Well, all of a sudden, I was being sent 400 people a year from all over the world for the spinal cord stimulator. And when I looked at these people, the average such patient had 5 unsuccessful back operations. Now, in my experience, if the first surgery doesn't work well, the second one is less likely to work. And so I didn't operate. I would not put a pacemaker in these people because they had already been damaged so badly with excessive surgery, narcotics, tranquilizers, junk drugs. And so in 1971, I decided to find a way of treating people without damaging them any further. And that's when I started the first major pain clinic in the world.
And that was your biogenics
Well, it
clinic?
included biogenics, yes.
Okay. 1971. It's quite a while ago.
Yes.
We're talking almost 49 years ago. Okay. So this was a comprehensive pain and stress management facility. Is that what you would call that?
Exactly.
And over the years, Dr. Shealy, you and I have talked about stress and how dangerous it is and what a killer it is. Is it still that much of a killer, or is it even worse than in 1971?
Oh, yes. Stress is physical, chemical, emotional, and spiritual.
You know, I used to race cars back around 1970, 1971. I used to build engines and modify cars and race them on the track. And I would race my own car that I modified. And I have blown the engine 13 times in one particular vehicle, American Motors AMX 390. I've blown it 13 times. And what I was doing is, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because I was stressing that engine beyond its capability, and it would fail. I was pushing it past its design capability, and I was a teenager at the time, so I didn't have all the scientific equipment to measure and the cracks and the stress in the metal. So I was just pushing it and tow it back home. Is that what we're doing with the body? We're doing stupid things with chemicals and so forth, toxins, pushing it past its design capability. Is that is that what stress is?
That's what it is.
Okay. Now, if in the engines that I've blown, I've cracked some of them beyond repair, and others I have just broken some parts that I could replace. Is that the way it is with the body? Sometimes it's damaged beyond repair, and sometimes you can repair it. Is that like medicine too?
To some extent, that is true. Take one of the most common horrible problems of young babies, hydrocephalus, where they actually increase the water pressure in the brain. And one of the most successful treatments in history for that is to put in a way of reducing that pressure in the brain itself. And it can prevent severe brain damage.
And what causes hydrocephalus?
Well, something went wrong. Some physical damage to some part of the brain, which allows the pressure, the water in the brain to increase, and that causes pressure on the entire brain.
And when that happens, when a child is very young, the head just gets larger and larger and larger?
The largest one I've ever seen was brought in a wheelbarrow. This kid
Oh my gosh.
head was approximately 2.5 times normal size.
And can anything be done and for those individuals?
Yes. Again, there's a little valve you could put in that, reduces the pressure.
Okay, so is this a manually operated thing?
Oh, yes.
Well, you take a measurement. Okay.
Yeah.
So once a week you go to the doctor's office and they do a drain. Is that what we're talking about?
No, actually, it's automatic. You don't have to.
Okay.
When it's working fine, you don't have to do anything. Every once in a while, it has to be changed, but mostly it works amazingly well.
Okay. So, what happened next, Dr. Shealy, in your medical career? I mean, this is absolutely fascinating. I don't think many people who know of you know of the breadth and depth of your experience.
Well,
what was next?
Basically, I began to what I call retrain the brain. You can take a person with an ordinary brain and make them a genius with adequate training. And so, with adequate training, including some surgical procedures, you can actually save that person's life and have them live a very successful life.
There used to be a guy on the radio whose name was Jim Corey. He was out of Philadelphia. And I believe he had a PhD, and he owned a gym. And he was into health and fitness. And he used to tell people, they'd call him up and say, well, Dr. Jim, or Dr. Corey, the surgeon said I'm going to need to, undergo this kind of surgery for my knee. And he would always say, let's try something else first. Let's try something else first before you go into the knife. Do you feel the same way, Dr. Shealy?
Well, if there's something that looks safe, and potentially yes.
Okay. All right. Let's continue with more about Dr. Shealy when we come back. I'm talking with Dr. Norm Shealy, and Dr. Shealy has multiple PhDs. He's a medical doctor, surgeon of the year. He's written 38 books that you can buy, and the 39th is being written right now. Absolutely astonishing. Dr. Shealy, when did you become passionate about radio?
Oh, in 1988, I decided that the best way to, let people in the local area know about my work was to do a call-in radio show. So we started that on KWTO, and I'm still doing it.
So nonstop since 1988, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Wow. Dr. Shealy, that sounds to me like you are, first of all, there aren't a lot of doctors on the radio. I'm talking about medical doctors. And there are even fewer on the radio who are medical doctors and PhDs. And there are even fewer that have multiple PhDs and are medical doctors. And there are even fewer who are surgeons of the year. And there are even fewer who are authors. And nobody that I've ever heard on the radio has written 38 books and one in the oven, surgeon of the year, multiple PhDs, worked at Harvard's Massachusetts General Hospital. You're the only one, Dr. Shealy. Everybody's below you in my book. Everybody. There's only one Norm Shealy.
Well, I've been very fortunate to have, innovative ideas that are safe. And probably the most important change in my evolutionary thinking was the introduction of holism. In 1978, I founded the American Holistic Medical Association. Because to me, medicine went wrong 300 years ago when it kicked the soul out of medicine. The
and when you
soul
say
is
kick,
the real you.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been described different ways. So what is the soul to you, Dr. Shealy?
Soul to me is the unique characteristic of a given individual. It is the thing that brought you here, it's the thing that carries forward after this life, and it is, well, your forever being.
That sounds exactly like what I think it is as well. I don't know if everyone thinks that, but it sure sounds like the right answer to me. So, Dr. Shealy, I keep hearing a recurring theme through our discussion today, and that is safety. And so it sounds to me like in your world, it's got to be safe in order for you to want to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And it also sounds like that was the underpinning of the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
But that doesn't seem to be where we are today. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about medicine.
Right. In fact, medicine itself is the number 3 published cause of death. In other words, drugs and surgery, complications of drugs and surgery, kill us beyond heart disease and cancer.
Absolutely stunning. So what drove you, we talked about what drove you to your first radio broadcast, and I guess you felt that it was the right decision over 30 years ago, 32 years ago, and you've kept on with it. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. I've been in the studio with you. That's actually, class, that's where I met Dr. Shealy. I met Dr. Shealy at a radio station, the big radio station, the big AM radio station in Springfield, Missouri, KWTO AM560. And Dr. Shealy was in the studio. He was on the hour before I would come on. So what would happen in a radio studio is typically there's one studio. So not a whole bunch of studios, and that was the studio. And glass walls, so people could, watch you in the studio while you're on the air. Microphones around a table. An engineer would be there running the board and making sure the signal was good, and would answer the phone when calls came in and let the host know who was on the phone. And that's where I met Dr. Shealy, because he was on the hour before I would come on, and as he was getting up, I'd be sitting down, and we'd have a few minutes to chat. And that's how we met. And Dr. Shealy is still on the air there. We'll talk a little bit more about that if it's okay with you, Dr. Shealy. Your experience, absolutely fascinating. And by the way, I sent you an email. Please take a look at it with an attachment. I think you might find it quite interesting. I'll tell the class about it when we come back. This is Dr. Shealy, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed, hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Norm Shealy. And today we're talking about who is Dr. Shealy, so that you get a feel for his experience, what he's done, and his wealth and breadth and depth of knowledge. And if you'd like to go to his website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. So, Dr. Shealy, I sent you an email. Did you have a chance to open that up?
I did look at it, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to, I'll tell you what it is, class. I went to TalkStreamLive.com, TalkStream, STREAM, TalkStream live.com. And that is a website that will show you the ranking in order from first to last of people listening to broadcasts. Okay, so the top rated broadcast will be number 1, and number 2 would be below number 1, and so forth. And there are 2 measurements that they have. One is streaming. Streaming is who's listening live. And then there's another one, who's listening delayed. That would be podcasts. And right now, we're number 37 out of over like 125 or so, listening live nationally at USA Prepares. And in podcast, meaning downloads and listening delayed, we're number 11. And I wanted Dr. Shealy to see that because for some reason, and I'm not sure why, for the last couple of weeks, we have been in the upper tier of podcasts every day, even when we're not on the air. I mean, even Saturday, Sunday, that kind of thing. So it's quite interesting that my take on this is people are saying they want to hear more about what is happening and what to do about it rather than hear opinions from people who are talking about the news and who done it versus what can you do about what has happened. So we talk about medicine, we talk about physics, we talk about all kinds of things, how to do better with what you have. That's what we do. And what's happening is we are moving up in the ranks, and I believe we have crossed the threshold into the major league. So Little USA Prepares with a faculty of volunteers. Nobody's paid, nobody, including me, has crossed that threshold. We don't have an army. We don't have producers. It's just us. It's just a bunch of volunteers that just show up. And when Dr. Shealy arrived this morning, I can guarantee you he had no idea what we were going to talk about. Is that right, Dr. Shealy?
That is correct.
So I wake up in the middle of the night and I think, I think about this broadcast classroom a lot. When I'm on the tractor, when I'm with the cows, when I'm walking down the driveway, when I'm, filling in ruts and working, on a backhoe or equipment or cars or whatever it is, I'm thinking about the broadcast and what can we add to it? And I thought that y'all might want to know about who Dr. Shealy is because there's no one like him. I've met a bunch of people and there's no one even close to Dr. Shealy. He's world renowned. I just want to let you know that is the case. So, and if you want to see this yourself, class, you can go to TalkStreamLive.com and look, TalkStream, TalkStream live.com, and you'll see it for yourself. So the recurring theme that we've been talking about is safety, and the underpinning of the Hippocratic Oath, first, do no harm. Dr. Shealy, how did we get away from the Hippocratic Oath, where doctors might be willing to jump in and do something risky before doing something safe? What happened?
Well, I think you could say the pharmacal mafia took over. The strength of advertising, control, and influence throughout medical school and training. Now, the number one force in that is the pharmacal mafia.
Okay, and would you say that the pharmacal mafia uses skewed science, bought and paid for science, manipulated science, manipulated statistics, etc.? You're
being kind.
Well, I do remember commercials, and I might not have this exactly right, but it was 4 out of 5 television commercials back in the 1950s, maybe 1960s. 4 out of 5 doctors prefer one cigarette brand over another, Tareyton or Camel or whatever it might have been, or 9 out of 10 doctors who were surveyed smoked Camel, for example, cigarettes. But what wasn't told is that, a few weeks before that, cartons of cigarettes were delivered to doctors' offices. And then later, the call came in. So, doctor, what cigarette brand have you smoked in the last 2 weeks? The Camel. But they didn't tell you that that's because a carton was dropped off, in preparation for that skewed statistic. And I think there's something that goes like, you can lie with statistics. And that's absolutely true. So you really need to, you can lie with graphs, you can lie with statistics, and so we're talking about manipulation of the message to make you believe one thing or another, like cigarettes are good for you. But we all knew, Dr. Shealy, we knew in the 50s that smoking caused cancer, didn't we? I mean, wasn't that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. But yet, the heads of the tobacco companies went before Congress and testified that no, it doesn't cause cancer. They lied. They lied to Congress.
Well, they are cheap skunks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being kind.
There's an enormous profit in cigarettes. I can share with you a story that I'm probably the only guy on the planet that can share. Back in the 90s, I was making computers in Virginia, Southern Virginia. It's called Southside Virginia. And a guy came up to me, and he said he wanted me to build some computers for his company. And his name is Bailey. And I built a network for him. And the network that I built is a network that Bailey Cigarette Company used at the startup of their business. And they were really, really broke in the beginning. I mean, I had to lend him the money, if you will, to buy the computers to get started. Now, I didn't actually lend him money. I just gave him the computers on credit. So I built the network, and they launched the Bailey Tobacco or Bailey Cigarette Company. And they started out in a very small small building. I mean, the size of a small house in rural Virginia. And they quickly bought some machines. And the last time I saw the factory, which was, maybe 20 years ago, it's a quarter of a mile long. 20 years ago. So they did it the hard way. I mean, they really worked on this company. Their name was Bailey, so they were sued by the Bailey liqueur company for use of their own last name, and they were successful in defending the use of Bailey's. But they delivered cigarettes to stores. They built racks, and they were lower priced than the leading brands like Marlboro and so forth. And their thought was that they would be willing to give someone a carton of cigarettes to get him to be a customer. That's how much profit there is in tobacco. That's how much. Now, how do I know that? Because I was told by the vice president, who's also named Bailey, that they'd be glad to do that. So, the message that I'm trying to convey is that we follow the leader sometimes, and maybe we shouldn't. Meaning like smoking. One person smokes and another person smokes and catches on really quickly. And we knew in our hearts and in our minds in the 1950s that smoking caused cancer. But people still lit up. Dr. Shealy, so your first book, can you tell us a little bit more about your first book? How did that happen?
Well, I had discovered that certain things were being done that were very dangerous. And basically, they were injecting into the disc spaces a chemical to destroy the discs themselves. And it actually damaged the blood vessels in that area and even could cause a kind of blood vessel tumor to grow. And to me, that was a wide awakening of the serious damage that was being done by certain drugs without proper care. So it made me totally aware that the pharmaco mafia has no conscience.
Okay.
I don't think they have a soul. They sold it out to Lucifer long ago.
Mm-hmm. And this would be for reasons of profit, right? Money,
Exactly.
more money. Okay. And it's, Dr. Shealy, literally, I can remember in the 1960s, an office visit to a doctor was $4. F-O-U-R. Not 40, 4. What happened?
Well, what really happened is that LBJ got interested in Medicare, and he, started the process of this concept called Medicare. And I was on the faculty at West Reserve Medical School at the time, but on my home station there, I wrote him a letter and said, you will bankrupt the country because the government has never been able to do anything that is financially sound. A week later, I got a phone call from the chairman of surgery, which oversaw surgery and neurosurgery. Norm, what the hell did you write to President Johnson? I've been on the phone all day with the FBI. They want me to fire you because they think you're a communist. When Medicare came in 1965, medical expenses were 4.5% of national gross product. By 1970, they were 10%. And today they're 21%. And medical care is no better than it was before 1965.
Very interesting point, because I remember going to the doctor's office when I, as a teenager in the 60s. They had nurses, they had doctors. I mean, they had a nice office. It wasn't a rundown shack. We'll be right back with Dr. Norm Shealy. Talking about Dr. Shealy and his experiences and his wealth and depth and breadth of knowledge. Dr. Shealy, I believe you mentioned that in 1965, LBJ, that'd be Lyndon Baines Johnson, former president of the United States, right after John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated, that the GDP, gross domestic product, was 4.5%, meaning 4.5% of the production of the United States was related to medicine. And now we're looking at 21%, which is $1 out of $5 of the gross domestic product is used in medical care. That's a staggering number. Some people used to think that when taxes would hit 10%, there would be rioting and a revolution. And what I believe you said is that 21% of the gross domestic product is medicine, just to allegedly keep us healthy. Is that right?
That is correct. And we are number 38 in the world in our overall health. We have far, far lower overall health than any other major country in the world.
So we spend more, and we're doing worse. It kind of sounds like our educational system.
Exactly.
It costs between $10,000 and $11,000 per child between the educational years of kindergarten and 12th grade. That's what it costs on average, between $10,000 and $11,000 per year for public school across the United States. Pretty much anywhere. Some places are way more than $10,000 or $11,000 a year. And it seems to me that the more a county spends on education, the dumber the students become. And so would you say our medical system is in shambles, Dr. Shealy, or not yet?
Well, it is, but it isn't recognized that way yet.
I was looking for the article about, there's a guy, a famous television personality, Simon Cowell, I think I pronounced his last name, and he was riding an electric bike the last few days and somehow was injured and broke his back. And so the reports are, he's going to be okay and he's going to have surgery. And it reminded me of what you were saying, that when a person has a back surgery, it seems like they have another one and another one and another one. And the surgeries don't seem to get it right the first time. Why is that, Dr. Shealy?
I can't answer that for you adequately. All I can say is, since the beginning of coronary bypass surgery, I have threatened to have tattooed on my chest, "Do not open."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The statistics suck, and there is no way I would allow you to stick a knife in my chest.
Okay. Well, here's the headline, Daily Mail. Quote, "The impact missed his spinal cord by a centimeter. Simon Cowell, Cowell, could have been paralyzed when he fell from his electric bike as Starr recovers from 6-hour surgery on his broken back." So he's a 60-year-old guy, and it looks like he fell from an electric bike, got hurt, spent 6 hours in the operating room. Must have been pretty serious to spend that much time, wouldn't you say, Dr. Shealy? 6 hours in the operating room? Okay. And when someone has, I know a bunch of people who have had back surgery. I mean, they had it before I met them, and they've all had to go back for more. All of them. I think the average would be about 3 times, total of three surgeries, and still not right. Is it because the back is so complicated, or
No,
is it because
it's because it wasn't meant to be operated upon?
Okay. All right. So it says here that the 60-year-old entertainment mogul is said to be recovering well after having 6-hour emergency surgery, which saw a metal rod placed in his back. What do you think about adding metal to one's body, Dr. Shealy?
I don't like it.
Okay. Are there other alternatives besides a piece of titanium or stainless?
Yeah,
Stainless
bone.
steel? Bone. Meaning your own bone?
Works better.
Is that your own bone or from an animal?
Well, it can be from a cadaver, or it can be from another a patient. It should be human bone.
Okay. All right, Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. I have a bunch more questions for him about his books. His favorite book. Which of all the books is his favorite? We'll be right back. Class Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. NormShealy.com. NormShealy.com. Dr. Shealy's written 38 books, and he's got one in the oven, so 39 is coming. Dr. Shealy, of all the books, which one is your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, Conversations with G, a physician's encounter with heaven.
And why do you say that, Dr. Shealy? What makes that your favorite?
Well, my experience of being able to communicate with an angelic guide has, been one of my most important contributions. I've got a whole bunch of patents that have come to me through my conversations with my guides, and it's really sort of the central core of my life.
Would you say that when you use the word and letter G, that's with a capital G, that would be God?
No, it means guide, Guide.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if guide and God were the same as well.
No.
Okay. So you have been, am I understanding you right, that you've been guided and into inventions, thoughts, practices, therapies, etc., and that's what you're talking about?
Exactly.
Okay. I understand. And now, there's so many books. You've got energy medicine. You've got the blueprint for holistic healing. You have living bliss. You have soul medicine. You have 90 Days to Self-Health. You have the encyclopedia of natural remedies. You've got facts and choices. You've got third-party rape. You've got pony wisdom. Just to name a few. I'm kind of surprised that one of your favorites wasn't the encyclopedia of natural remedies.
But interestingly, it involved a lot more work than most of my other books.
Yeah.
It certainly, got a lot more information. But it doesn't have the same zap, if you will. My second favorite would be Living Bliss, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you've got another book called Medical Intuition.
Right.
Another one, Speedy Gourmet Cookbook.
Miracles
Life
do
Beyond
happen.
One. I'm sorry?
Miracles do happen.
Yeah. Holy Water, Sacred Oil. Can you tell us about that book? I have not.
Well,
I have not seen that one.
Basically, essential oils have been used for many, many centuries. And if you get the right combination, you can actually activate an acupuncture point just as well with a mixture of essential oils as with a needle. A lot less painful, just as effective, and a lot quicker.
And what about pony wisdom?
Well, that is actually the story of conversations with a dear friend of mine, a very intuitive friend, and it's based upon her intuitive hits.
Okay. All right. And food remedies. The illustrated food remedies. Can you tell us about that?
Another one that was fun to work to do, and food is the natural medicine.
Okay. And can you share with us some thoughts about your latest book, or is that going to be, will that be delayed until it's published?
Well, it's going to be delayed until it's published. And of course, the coronavirus has been a delay in everything in life. But this was going to be Restore Common Sense. The most uncommon commodity in the world is common sense.
And Dr. Shealy, you have spent some time and a great deal of your reserves, if you want to call it that, with the university here in Missouri State University, regarding conscientiousness. Is that correct? In the Department of Psychology? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, in 2011, a book came out that had been in preparation for since 1921. A psychologist in San Diego asked the teachers to give him the names of their best patients, students. And they followed these kids for 80 years with extreme psychological evaluations. What they discovered is that conscientiousness, the art of being organized and responsible, is the number one personality trait for health, longevity, and lifetime income. In other words, that personality trait alone is more responsible for your overall health, well-being, and longevity than all other known factors.
Seems that we should all be doing that. No, I mean, that's the way you live. That's the way we live here. We plan.
It is common sense.
Yeah. And, Dr. Shealy, that was a term that was used when I was in elementary school. I'm talking about in the 1950s. People used the term common sense. And now it seems that they use it with another descriptor, the uncommon commodity, common sense.
Well, I remember since at least age 5, my father used to say common sense is the uncommon commodity.
Okay, so he must have been one of the originators of that. But yeah, okay. But now it's really common that people say it's uncommon.
Yes.
By the way, I just bought your book just now, the Illustrated Food Remedies Source Book by Norman Shealy. So I'm all excited about. I'm waiting to get that. So, class, you can get that. You can buy it on the internet. The Illustrated Food Remedy Source Book. Is that one of your favorite, Dr. Shealy?
Oh,
It
yeah.
piqued my interest.
No, definitely.
Okay. How long did it take to write that kind of a book?
Most of the time, I can do it in about 3 months.
Okay. And do you put yourself into a meditative state before you write, while you're writing, while you're thinking about what you want to write, or does it just come out? Do you?
Well, no, I do detach. In other words, in order to focus on writing a book, my number one priority is to detach from everything that would distract me from writing that book. So I don't want to be distracted by idle chatter.
Mm-hmm. That's hard to do. That's hard to do because idle chatter is easy. Collecting your thoughts and focusing, that's way harder. I guess that's why a lot of people don't do it. It's really tough. Okay. For me, I always taught, at the university and at high school level and elementary school level to organize your thoughts, write an outline, then flesh it out. My book isn't working like that. My book is a bunch of random thoughts that as I think of them, I write them down and then I'm going to organize them later. What is your style?
I usually get the title or topic, and then I start filling in the blank spots, so to speak.
Okay. So do you have an outline or do you do it without an outline?
I usually write a small outline, but it grows as I work.
Okay. All right. So if you were going to recommend that someone buy one of your books, which one would you say start with this one?
Well, it depends on what you want. Actually, my best book for the average person is 90 Days to Self-Help. It gives all the details behind that.
90 Days to Self-Health. And let's see. Yeah, that's available. Most of these books are available on Dr. Shealy's website, class, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And you can click on the books and you can buy them right then and there. Why do you say that, Dr. Shealy? Why would that be the one for most people to start with? What will they, once they have read it, and they actually have to read it, what will they come out with?
Well, they come out with the technique for training your brain to detach from those things you cannot change. That's what's most important about it. And that book, back in 1977, sold on to 30,000 copies.
What qualifies for a bestseller book award kind of thing? Would that be a bestseller?
Yes. 100,000 or up is a bestseller.
Dr. Shealy, I'm looking at your website. It says you're an MD. We know that. That means medical doctor. It also Doctor of Philosophy, PhD. And then D.SC, Doctor of Science? Is that what that is?
In Ryodo Raku. That is Japanese acupuncture.
And then capital FACS. What is that?
Fellow of the American College of Neurosurgery.
Okay. And then, so you're an MD, PhD, a Doctor of Science, a fellow, and a DABNS.
Again,
Doctorate
that is,
of?
Neurological surgery.
Okay. And you're the president of Shealy Soren Wellness and Holos Energy Medicine Education. So quite a list of accomplishments, and this is just the abbreviation. I've been to your farm, Dr. Shealy, and I've been to the chapel on your farm. And out of the way, there's a hallway. And it is, it's covered with all kinds of awards. And it's not the first thing you see when you go into this building class. You got to look for it. And so it's modest in terms of, it's kind of hidden from view, but it is incredible in terms of the number of awards that you've won. Do you have any idea how many awards are on that wall, Dr. Shealy?
Half of the pocket I've never counted.
Okay, Dr. Shealy and I will be right back. So this 60-year-old person has roughly a 3/8 of an inch wide to by maybe 1 inch long and 1/4 of an inch in depth, kind of a fatty lump between the wrist and the elbow, and it will move up, down, left, right, maybe a 1/2 inch or so. I'm trying to interpret this. And sometimes it's painful, meaning a dull ache. Sometimes it hurts when this person lifts something. Any thoughts what that might be, or whether supplementation might help it, or is this surgery, or what's the next step, Dr. Shealy? That's what
if it is a lipoma, which is a fatty tumor, the only real treatment is surgery to remove it.
Okay. And what happens if does a lipoma cause pain, a dull pain?
Oh, it can, yes, indeed.
Okay. Do they ever go away?
Almost never.
Okay. So surgery. Now, what kind of a surgeon would do this? Would it be a dermatologist? Would it be a orthopedist? What do you think? What would be the next step?
It depends to some extent, but it could be a neurosurgeon, of course. Because if pain is involved, then that is a consideration of who is, most likely to operate for that particular purpose.
Okay. And if it's between the wrist and the elbow, on the inside rather than the outside, meaning facing the inside of the body, are there any risks about, could the surgeon get it wrong and debilitate the arm?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
But properly done, it is a pretty safe procedure.
Okay. Is this with local anesthetic or general?
Consider the size that you talked about. I think it would be better. It could be a brachial plexus, a local anesthesia, yes.
Okay. So that would be an injection in the arm to numb the area and then surgery.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. I'll pass that. Maybe the students listening. So that's the answer. Dr. Shealy, your greatest concern for mankind, what would that be right at the moment? Meaning all of us in this together on the planet. Do you have the greatest concern? Concern?
The Committee of 300. I believe it is the most evil organization in the history of the world.
Mm-hmm. And no disagreement from me. I've been watching a television series called Maverick, and it has James Garner and Jack Kelly in it. And this was produced in 1957. And it's the same darn thing. It's the corrupt sheriff. It's the sheriff wanting to get a piece of the reward money. It's the corrupt politicians. It's the corrupt landowners that don't have enough. They want more and more and more. And it's the manipulation of the cowhands. The gang that moves cows from one location in the country to another, and they're hot and sweaty and they're kind of rough, and they get manipulated into killing people. It's good against evil all the time, and it's the same darn thing in 1957 as it is today. And it seems to me that it's really out of control now, because if you look at Chicago today, if you look at the shootings that are going on, the protests that are becoming violent, so you have protesters, which is, I think it's a great thing, but then you have like side groups that want to slash and bash and crash and bust and burn. And it's hard to tell who's who. And it's almost like a free-for-all. And you asked me about the country, when would the Civil War / revolution start? And gosh, here we are. I mean, it's getting, every time we broadcast together, Dr. Shealy, every week it's getting worse. And we can't believe anything that the media tells us. Nothing. We can't believe anything that the White House tells us. It's like everybody who is at some level of, we'll call it authority in quotes, has a gun to everybody else who is in authority. I mean, they all have guns to each other's head and they're manipulating each other. And we're the victims. We're being lied to at every level. Any comments about that?
Well, that's why I call it a fake-epidemic.
Mm-hmm. So my understanding is the virus is real, but it's being manipulated into corralling us into doing what the, those who want to control us want us to do. Is that
Got
correct?
It.
Yep. Yep. Dr.
The
Shealy,
evil empire.
When it comes to, if you had children of school age, and let's say they were going to be attending the public school system, and they were being told right now, okay, classes are resuming for the next class year. Would you have any concerns about sending them to class as it used to be before
yes, absolutely.
Okay. What would you do? Would you say no, take them out of school, homeschool them? What would you do?
I would have to look into whether or not we could homeschool because, that takes almost a full-time job.
It is a full-time job. There's no question about it. But you're concerned about sending them back to the public training camp. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Always a pleasure, Vince. Have a good one.
Thank you, Doctor.